UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Welcome to Franchise Fatigue, the United Federation of Podcasts, little podcast devoted to movies, sequels, remakes, and all those little wonderful things that we love as fans. We keep going to the theaters, we keep spending our money, because we want to see the same stories over and over because we just love it. And we love talking about it. I'm your nerd host, Brandon-Shea Mutella, and joining me, as always, is the undead Zach Moore.
Church is a good kitty.
I hate cats.
I do too. I don't hate cats. I just like dogs more. That's all I have to say about that.
That's all you have to say about that. Tonight, we are talking about the 2019 remake of Pet Semetary. And we are so thrilled because we were able to make our schedules work and have our returning guest, John Mills, who's been with us for the last two, to come back and talk about the new one. I'm so happy you're here, John. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm happy to be here just to represent people who do love cats. Because I do. I do love cats.
Do you have a cat?
No, not anymore, because when we got the dog, we still had the cat, and the dog tried to eat the cat, and then they had to live separately until the cat passed on. The cat did not pass on because of the dog, mind you. But, I wish I could have just a separate house full of cats, which I suppose is a psychologically disturbing image. But there you go. That's me.
Awesome.
To be fair, I've never owned a cat, so I've had friends that tell me once you have a good cat, it really changes your opinion. So I've just been a dog guy my whole life with my family. So to be fair to all the cats and the cat lovers out there, I've never owned a cat. I'm sure if I did, I would find it cuddly and lovely, and if it died, I would try to resurrect it in a pet cemetery.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'm allergic to cats, so that's why I don't like them. But, anywho. Okay, well, we're not talking about my allergies. We're going to be talking about the Pet Semetary movie. But before we get into the discussion of the film, Zach Moore, tell me you found some trivia.
I did find some trivia. Now, this is a little different because this is a brand new film, right? I mean, it's all these other films, they've been documented for years, and people have been writing books and articles and interviews and all that kinds of stuff. Lots of behind-the-scenes insight. This is fresh off the printer here, Pet Semetary 2019. So a little shorter trivia section than usual, but we still got some tidbits for y'all.
So what you're telling me is you didn't do your job fully.
No. Spoilers here, people. All right? If you haven't seen Pet Semetary 2019, go see it, because a lot of this trivia is talking about changes made between the two films and the book, and that's really going to affect your viewing experience. So I wish the trailer companies held that same.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you don't even need to see the movie. Just watch the trailer, and you'll be okay for the rest of the episode.
Well, let's get into it, though. What we do have are some interesting insights from Stephen King. He'd actually proposed an alternate ending where Gage is walking up in the middle of the road, and the sun is coming up, dawn is approaching, a truck is coming, and you think, quote, oh my God, he's going to get greased in the road. That's how this is going to end, unquote. Stephen King said that. But then at the last second, a woman pulls him out of the road, rescues him, and says, quote, where's your mommy and daddy? And that's how you end the thing, but that isn't what they show. So that's what Stephen King said about the ending. And speaking of the ending, there were multiple versions of the ending that were written, and more than one of them was shot. And one of them was the original ending of the book, which is also more or less the original ending from the 1989 film. And they showed both endings to test audiences, and the new ending got the best response. So producer Lorenzo de Bonaventura said, quote, a lot of times with endings, you kind of just let the audience tell you what they're feeling. We got to screen both of them to people, and it would just seem like audiences really responded to that one. So that's why we got the ending we did. Now, we'll get on the endings. We're working backwards with the trivia here. But according to screenwriter Jeff Bueller, there were 3 different ideas, and they were ranked in order of darkness, and they picked the darkest one. And Jeff Bueller said it gave the film an extra punch. Quote, it felt right to have an ending that had a little punch to it. and was kind of a wink, like, we're in a horror movie, people. It's Friday night. You're out with your friends. Have some fun. So that's their logic of the ending they chose, and obviously we'll talk about all the changes and whatnot that were made here for this film. And there are two directors for this film, Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. And their approach was just finding a different angle. They didn't want to change stuff just for the sake of change, but they wanted to put a fresh spin on things. And they said, quote, when you're making an adaptation, you want to do as much new, fresh things that you can, because there's already an existing movie. But at the same time, you want to make sure you're staying true to the essence of the book, so that people still feel like they're getting Stephen King's Pet Semetary. And I agree. I think that's the right angle to take. And as we talk about it here in our conversation, it is well constructed. The changes they make, they think them through backwards and forwards and how it affects the overall plot. Now, they also go on to say, quote, it wasn't necessarily an idea like we have to change the ending. It was just sort of other things changed within the movie. We changed it from Gage to Ellie. Then obviously Ellie, then being this character that could now have the awareness to know what's going on with her and have conversations about it, it changed the scenes afterward. And that's true, because Gage being 2 years old, there's really not a lot of self-awareness. There's existentialism, whatever you want to call it. But when Ellie, I mean, that's a chilling scene, and we'll talk about it, but when she is, back from the dead, and she says, I'm dead, aren't I? Like, that's stuff you didn't get before. So it takes you down a new road, which you didn't see before. But again, one of the kids died, so it's not a radical change. But speaking of death changes, Zelda's death changed from the original movie and original story. And director Kolsch said it was changed based on a news story that Widmeyer had read about. And Kolsch said, quote, the idea of dying that way was just so horrendous to me that we said, you know what? What if we try to do more with this? This still chills me when I think about it. And speaking of death changes, Zelda's death changed from the original movie, including the dumbwaiter. And part of the inspiration for this change was a news story that Kolsch and Widmeyer had read about a waitress who fell into a dumbwaiter and broke her neck during her first week on the job. So I assume that she just wasn't familiar with how it operated, or just wasn't. I don't know. Terrible story, right? But they said, quote, the idea of dying that way was just so horrendous to me that we said, you know what? What if we try to do more with this? This still chills me when I think about it. That's Widmeyer's quote there. So that is a change, because in the original, she just kind of choked. There was no dumbwaiter involved, but that became kind of a set piece of this film, as we'll talk about. Now, there were some concerns about Zelda, because this is interesting bit of trivia to me, because back in our episode about the first Pet Semetary, 1989's, I had said if I was going to remake this story, I would probably just drop the Zelda character entirely, because it just seemed like a little much and a little necessary. They consider that as well, but only because it was done so well. And this is what Widmeyer had to say, quote, we were a little worried about the character of Zelda. There were ideas of possibly not doing Zelda because we were so in awe of the actor from the first movie. The complete opposite reason why I would have left it out, but that's what they chose to do. Now, during Ellie's birthday party, Judd can be here in the background saying, quote, there was a big St. Bernard, he got rabies. And this, of course, is a reference to Cujo. There's also lots of other Stephen King references throughout the film. There is a D. Torrance realtor sign in one of the yards. That's obviously reference to Danny Torrance. We see the Derry, Maine, 20 miles away in the exit when Rachel is coming back. So we see it on the road. So building the Stephen King cinematic universe. And Church, right? Church is the big, he's on all the posters, Church the cat, right? So 5 cats played Church, and they were all rescues. So which I think that's great, because I do love, despite our jokes about cats and whatnot, I do love animals, and it's great they use rescue cats. And ultimately, one of them dropped out after getting scared on the set, but they were all accommodated in 5 trailers along with their human trainers. And another one had to be kept in a separate trailer from the others because it did not get along with a cat's mate. So that sounds more like a cat to me. Right? But animal trainer Melissa Millette said, quote, the only good working cat is a happy cat. They were quite spoiled. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, like a whole trailer for a cat. And the film crew even built an area near the trailers, and they called it a catio, where the hardworking cats could play and relax between takes. Now, these cats, they spent 2 months training for the shoot, which took around 10 weeks. And aside from the one cat that they got cranky, the rest got along well with each other. And all 5 cats found homes after the shoot was done. 2 were adopted by the movie's animal coordinator, and Millette found homes for the other 2 with friends and kept one for herself. So that's always, we're joking about cats, I know, but I do love animals, and that's great to know that these cats, not only were they rescues, but they found a good home after the movie. So good on you, churches. And then finally, the end credits of the film. Of course, the 1989 film had Ramones' Pet Semetary playing, and this version had the same song, but it was a cover by the band Star Crawler, who I've not heard of, but they sound a lot like the Ramones to me. I thought for a minute that was actually the same Ramones track. And then last bit about the song, in the 1989 film, when the truck driver is going to hit Gage, there is he's listening to this to a Ramones song, and this time he gets a text, but it's from the same name of the person in the Ramones song is the person who sends him a text message that distracts him, and he almost hits Gage, and he goes off the side of the road, and of course he kills Ellie. So there you have it.
That's funny. I didn't catch that one.
No, neither did I. Neither did I.
Okay, guys, let's jump into this discussion. Zach, thank you so much for your trivia. Okay, so the first thing we got to start with, I want to talk about the trailer. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys about spoilers in trailers, because I really wish that I didn't know this twist going into the movie. And I think a lot of people feel this way. And I know that there's a lot of critical analysis of trailers saying, oh, all the funny parts were in the trailer, or like everything is. And I know that the trailer is supposed to bring you into a movie, but I don't think that the twist of the change in plot is what's going to drive people to come to see this movie. Because Pet Sematary was so long ago, like 1989. What is that? That's 30 years ago.
30 years.
Pet Sematary came out, right? That while I am a fan of the original, like, I'm not really their primary audience. Yes, it's Stephen King fans, but I think it's kind of like we've got this resurgence in horror films going on right now. And so I'm disappointed that I saw that. Did you guys, I know, Zach, did you know about the twist ahead of time? John, did you know about the twist ahead of time?
I had seen the trailer because people said, oh, here's the new Pet Sematary trailer, reveals something from the movie. I was like, well, I'm going to watch it. I'm curious to see it. And I was like, oh, well, okay. Thanks. You know, this is funny. You know, Jason Clarke stars as Mr. Creed here. He was also in another movie, a little movie called Terminator Genesis.
Amazing movie.
Where they did a similar, we'll get to that later this year, where they did a similar thing where they just kind of spoil a big thing in the movie, in the trailer. It's like, okay, I guess, I don't know why you put that in there. There's plenty of other things to put in the trailer. They totally did not need to reveal that they switched the kid's death, because even and there's one scene, if you guys remember, when Ellie's asking her parents, are you going to be around forever and ever? And he's like, yeah, mommy and daddy and church are going to be around for a long time. And Ellie's like, engage? And like, oh, of course, Gage, you know? And you're like, oh, because the movie is set up to make you think Gage is going to die. And that's a big twist. And even and they do this. They set up certain things you know from the first movie, like when Judd gets his Achilles heel cut under the bed, and it doesn't happen. You're like, oh, okay, and then he jump scare you again later. So I don't know. Like I don't know the logic of showing you that in the trailer, and I very much disagree with it.
I agree with you, Zach. I didn't have too negative a reaction. I consider it sort of a given that they're going to give away something key in the trailers now. I think that you have to have something that's like such a guaranteed hit, like an Avengers movie, where they can say, it doesn't really matter what we show you because you're going to show up no matter what we show you. You know, they could show a black screen where it's like Avengers released on April 25th. It's like, okay, people are going to show up. But I do think that this would have been a better trailer to set things up if they'd simply had Lithgow talking to Lewis, just to, talking about that place has because I remember a voiceover started the first trailer I saw for Pet Sematary, where you hear Lithgow talking about that place is, there's a power to it and all of this stuff, and sometimes dead is better. Like a very targeted preview like that. I think that both the trailer marketing and the fact that they reveal stuff is actually